Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Chesterton's Jest, where we keep a critical eye on faith and culture, especially within the Catholic Church today. In an age where even church teachings seem to be shifting, we're here to explore and question the ideas and changes that challenge timeless truths. Through thought-provoking, often humorous perspectives, we aim to bring clarity to conversations others might avoid, holding fast to orthodoxy with the courage to question what feels off track. If you would like to join us as we dig deeper into the faith with reverence, wit, and a touch of Chestertonian insight, you can support this channel by gently pressing the like, share, and subscribe buttons in that order, and we thank you for your support. And now, without further ado, Christian persecution in the 21st century. Where is the outrage? Chapter 1. The Unbroken Legacy of Persecution. Christian persecution, though often overlooked, is a problem with deep roots in history. From the early martyrs who were fed to lions in Rome, to the genocides committed by communist regimes, to the suppression of religious freedoms in the modern era, Christians have consistently faced persecution for their faith. These attacks are not relics of the past, but an ongoing reality. Christians, who make up almost 1/3 of the global population, remain the most persecuted religious group worldwide. In the 21st century, this persecution has manifested in increasingly violent forms, yet the global response has often been curiously muted. Chapter 2. The Middle East, the Cradle of Christianity in Crisis. For centuries, the Middle East was home to thriving Christian communities, but the rise of extremism has left these communities decimated. In 2014, ISIS, in a series of barbaric actions, issued a brutal ultimatum to Christians in Iraq and Syria: convert, pay a heavy tax, or face death. Entire towns, such as Karakosh, which had been home to Christians for over 1,800 years, were emptied as families fled from ISIS's wrath. In addition to the violence in Iraq and Syria, ISIS took the lives of 21 Coptic Christians on a Libyan beach, a public display of martyrdom that shocked the world. These men were killed for refusing to recant their faith, their executions marking a stark reminder that Christian persecution is a present-day reality. Chapter 3. The Silent Suffering of Africa. Christian persecution in Africa is widespread, with Nigeria serving as the epicenter of violence against Christians. Groups like Boko Haram and Fulani militants have slaughtered thousands of Christians in the country. In 2014, Boko Haram kidnapped 276 schoolgirls in Chibok, many of whom were Christians. Despite international outcry, little has been done to stem the violence. In 2020 alone, over 3,400 Christians were killed by jihadist groups, and countless others were displaced. Yet, these atrocities are rarely given the attention they deserve on the global stage. A particularly alarming trend is the nearly weekly abductions of Catholic priests who are targeted for ransom and to instill fear in Christian communities. In 2021, at least 40 priests were kidnapped across Nigeria. One high-profile case was the abduction of Father George Obinwa in August 2021, who was released after a ransom was paid. The violence continues in regions like Kaduna, where Father Vitus Borogo was abducted and killed in 2022. As of 2023, over 50 priests were kidnapped in just the first half of the year. Despite the severity of the crisis, the Nigerian government has failed to provide adequate protection, and the international response has been weak, with little action to hold perpetrators accountable. Christian advocacy groups like Aid to the Church in Need and International Christian Concern are some of the few to highlight this ongoing suffering. but the global community remains largely silent. This pattern of violence against priests in Christian communities signals the urgent need for action, yet the world's response remains alarmingly passive. Chapter 4. China, a modern-day Inquisition. In China, Christians face increasing persecution under the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, particularly in unregistered house churches. These underground communities are subjected to surveillance, imprisonment, and forced re-education. The government continues to tighten its grip, making it harder for Christians to practice their faith freely. One high-profile case is Pastor Wang Yi of Early Rain Covenant Church in Chengdu, sentenced to 9 years in prison in 2019 for preaching on the supremacy of Christ. The CCP regularly targets church leaders, raiding places of worship, seizing materials, and arresting pastors. These efforts also include indoctrinating Christians with Communist Party-approved versions of religion. While the world focuses on China's economic power, the plight of religious minorities, particularly Christians, remains largely ignored. In 2018, Pope Francis signed a controversial agreement with the Chinese government, allowing the CCP to select bishops. This move, meant to improve relations, has raised concerns about the CCP's control over church leadership and doctrine. Though Pope Francis sent Cardinal McCarrick as a liaison during these negotiations, the deal's primary concern remains the suffering of Chinese Christians under a regime that continues to repress their religious freedom. The international community must hold China accountable and support the persecuted faithful within its borders. Chapter 5. India, rising intolerance under Hindu nationalism. India has witnessed a disturbing rise in Hindu nationalism, which has fueled violence against its Christian population. The most notorious incident occurred in 2008 in Orissa, where violent mobs killed at least 100 Christians and destroyed thousands of homes and churches. Though the perpetrators of these crimes were rarely prosecuted, the attacks on Christians continue, with reports of similar violence increasing in recent years. Despite the severity of these attacks, international attention and condemnation have been scarce, and the Indian government has often failed to provide protection to its Christian citizens. Chapter 6. The Global Silence and the Need for Outrage. What is perhaps most striking about the modern-day persecution of Christians is the lack of sustained international outrage. Though some events, like the beheading of the 21 Egyptian Christians by ISIS in Libya, garner temporary attention, the response is often fleeting. In many cases, the international community offers only symbolic gestures, while the underlying violence continues unchecked. Countries like China, Nigeria, and India rarely face consequences for their oppression of Christians, and even when they do, the response is often insufficient. The question that remains is, why is this persecution largely ignored? What explains the failure to confront this human rights crisis on the global stage? Chapter 7. A Call to Action. The persecution of Christians is not just a historical problem. It is a present-day tragedy that demands our attention. The global church must rise to the occasion, not only in prayer, but in tangible action. Governments, international organizations, and individuals must stand in solidarity with those suffering for their faith. This persecution is not just an assault on Christianity, but on the fundamental right to religious freedom. If we truly believe in the universal dignity of every person, then we must not allow millions of Christians to suffer in silence. The time for action is now. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed today's video and share our passion for defending the true faith with a touch of humor, be sure to head over to chestertonsjest.com and check out our collection of bold, pro-Catholic graphic tees designed to spark conversation and inspire conviction. Whether you're looking to wear your faith proudly or share a laugh, we've got something for everyone. Visit us today and join the movement, because in times like these, it's more important than ever to stand firm in our beliefs with style and wit. As Chesterton once said, "A madman is not someone who has lost his reason. A madman is someone who has lost everything except his reason." So, let's keep our reason and our faith intact together. Thanks for listening. God bless you, and may the good Lord be praised.